on? Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming. So we already got the introduction, so I'm the Stripes team, I guess. So my name is Maryant, and I work for Edry. And so today we're going to talk about digital pleasure. As we explained before, unfortunately, Drew was not able to make it, but we have a guest today with us. So I want to introduce you to Fem. So Fem is the three of us, in a way. In the process of creating this human being, we realized that we would not make babies together. But basically, the point is that this session is going to be about you being aware of what your digital love life can look like, the risks, the benefits, and so you can be in control. So we don't want to talk about any particular person. We're not going to recommend any concrete applications or any concrete applications or sex toys or any of that sort. But basically, it's for you to be aware of what's out there. So this is Fem. So as the title says, pleasure is just a click away. So in order to explain how we want to present this, we're going to have three topics. The first one is going to be about period trackers. So there's some applications where, as a female, you can put when you have your menstruation, when you have sex, when you're fertile, and so on. There's other dating apps, and in particular, I'm going to talk about two, Tinder and Grindr. And then the second track would be about cameras and sex extortion, and the third one would be about Internet of Things. So are you ready?
Yes.
Good. Okay, let's talk about dating apps and period trackers. So at some point, Fem actually, so at some point, female get their periods. So with the connected world, she wants to be very connected and also share her information with the app and with other companies. So she will use certain apps, but also she's also willing to look for partners. And for that, she's going to use Tinder and Grindr, as I said before. As a general overview, I wanted you to retain three main things. First is the permissions you give when you actually have an app in your mobile device, for example, or in your tablet. This, for example, access to your location data, access to your agenda, access to your contacts, access to your browsing history, and permission to install some cookies in your device, and so on. The second one is a terms of service. As you know, is a take it or leave it situation. I'm not going to ask how many of you have read the terms of service of any of these apps, but here we are to explain some of the things that are in these terms of service or terms and conditions. And if you don't like them, what they tell you is like, well, don't use them, right? The third important thing I want you to retain is the privacy policies, and more specifically, two types of things that companies do. One is profiling, so they create patterns across users, and they may sell it to other partners or themselves can already monetize the data. For example, Tinder was launched in 2012. And only in 2015, at the first quarter, that's when they started monetizing users, when it was starting to be profitable. And that has grown globally. When it comes to data status, actually, not only human beings have relationships, your data also has a relationship. And guess what? Also, their status is an open relationship. And why? Well, in Edry, we like to talk about pregnant data, because one data set, let's imagine that you introduce your age, your sex, your preferences. When you, for example, use Tinder and you swipe, you also are telling the app the type of people you may like or dislike. And so with these data sets, they actually get together and they have data babies. And these data babies, when they grow up, they do that very quickly, by the way. They also get other babies. So in the end, it's an aggregation of different data and at different stages. And sometimes you cannot really know who the parents of these data babies are. So in other words, that your data is a bit promiscuous, even though you don't know about it. And actually, basically, the rules, such as the General Data Protection Regulation at the EU level, for example, would be the birth control of the data. So the rules are there to make sure that there are some limitations and there are some brutal condoms, let's say. So when it comes to peer trackers, I chose one example, and that is an application called Flow. It's owned by OW Health. It's an American company. And I don't know if any of you uses it. I'm not going to ask that question. But if you were to use it, as I said, it's good that you actually read the terms of service and privacy policies. If you actually do that, it's very interesting because, well, first of all the information that you're providing is no longer only yours. It now belongs to OW Health because you give a license to be used not only by it, but also by other companies with whom they have agreements and partnerships. Also, if you delete some data, imagine that you introduce that, oh, I got my period this day, and in the end, it's like, actually, I don't want to provide exact date and I want to lie to the app. You think that they may, that piece of information will no longer be there. But what happens is that once you put some information there, they create a duplicate and it's stored in their servers. And even if you terminate your account in there, because suddenly you realize you don't want to have it anymore, or for whatever reason, they still have a copy and they still can conduct profiling, or as they call it, they help provide to identify patterns across users. So, as I said, this is, for example, an extract of their policy. Since when you delete your data, actually, you don't see it, but they do see it, and they may retain it and use it for different purposes, such as advertising, for example. But let me talk to you about dating apps. I guess that's even more interesting, right? We are always trying to look for the love of our lives, or just friendships, or many other different things. So I wanted to talk to you about Tinder. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about is that maybe one thing that you didn't know is that Tinder is part of one of the companies of the Match Group. Basically, I don't know if you can really see them, but basically there are many different companies which are part of this group, like OkCupid, Mitnick, and so on. So basically, the data that you actually provide to Tinder, it's also being shared across these companies as well. Tinder actually encourages you to read the privacy policy. Actually, this encouragement comes when you actually click on it. So it's very interesting. Once you click on the privacy policy, they tell you, please read it, which at least is quite good. And also, I don't know if you knew, but even if you think that your private messages with other Tinder users are private, actually they're not, because if you read their policies, they say very clearly, if you chat with other Tinder users, you provide us with the content of your chats. And they also say that they don't have an obligation, but they have a right to monitor the content for many various reasons, such as advertising, or also they may share your location data, and in the end, they can actually create a profile out of you quite easily. Also, it's very interesting because contrary to other privacy policies, they actually provide links to opt-outs. So as a Tinder user, you are able to go into this policy and opt out from different things. So that's actually quite interesting, because by analyzing Tinder and Flow, period tracker, Tinder was the only one providing opt-outs links. So that's very interesting. One of the things that is presented here in the slide is the do not track. Actually, when you use a browser, you have the possibility as a user to send signals to companies that you don't want to be tracked. However, it's very interesting that in the privacy policy they say, well, you may well do so, and actually they explain what it is, but that doesn't mean that we're going to care about what you are sending us. Because guess what? Instead of you having the right to decide that they cannot track you, they say that the industry is thinking about what it means and is thinking about how to comply with it. Obviously, the General Data Protection Regulation will enter into force next year, so things may change. So FEM also wants to experiment, and she wanted to try another app called Gender. So it's mostly for example, homosexuals. And the terms and conditions and privacy policies are a bit different, actually. I found that Tinder's privacy policies and terms and conditions are clearer. But there are also very interesting things. For example, in Tinder, you're required to have a Facebook account, and then that means that you're also given access to certain information, not only your public profile. In Gender, for example, you don't need to have a Facebook account. However, they have very interesting things in their policies. One of them is this one, which to me it's quite interesting, because, for example, if you will have an account there, in principle, you're not able to publicize it in a public setting. I guess Republica is a public setting, so that would not be okay according to them, and you agreed to this. Or even you may not have been aware of it. Another thing is that Gender reserves the right but has no obligation to monitor what you do, including how many times you look at others' profiles, how many times you talk to other people, what you talk to the other person, and what you share. And as good experiences in life, FEM found somebody. Although it's not all hearts and love, but Estelle will walk you through that, and yeah, wait for it.
Thank you. So through the dating application, FEM has found love, as you can see, but this person is living far away, so their relationship is based on a long distance, and as many long distance relationships, it involves a lot of Skype call, Hangout call, FaceTime, etc., etc. So they're having these types of communication online, often sometimes very intimate, and they think they're just the two of them, but little do they know that sometimes there is an unknown third party that joined the fun, a government. Many of you might have heard from the Snowden revelation of different programs that allows government and intelligence authorities and other authorities to access your communication online, including voice and webcam communication. This is the case, for instance, of the famously known PRISM program, which involves the collection of data from you on many social media and the collection of communication that you're having through Skype. Initially, in 2011, the first slides revealed by the Snowden revelation indicated that it only covered the messaging, the text messaging sent through Skype, then just the voice, and then the video was added. So the full communication and everything that was happening during that Skype communication could be recorded, searched, and used by the authority. The authority even created a sort of user guide for their officers in how to search through this large amount of data and communication data that they were collecting, because it was so much. You might have heard of what search engine they internally use called X-Keyscored, and they had specific feature within X-Keyscored to search through the Skype data that was here for certain target. Similar programs were created also by the British intelligence community, the GCHQ, through a program called Optic Nerve that was installed in 2008, which included the collection of webcam recording from Yahoo accounts. It worked a little bit differently than the PRISM. The PRISM recorded the whole conversation you were having. The Optic Nerve, according to the document that were leaked, there was a system where the webcam was taking pictures of the communication every now and then they would have sort of screenshots of the communication that was happening. This, of course, is a clear infringement on our right to privacy, to data protection. When people are aware of this, it also creates the possibility of self-censorship, because people know that they are actually not having a one-on-one conversation, but there is a sneaky third party that is here in the back looking at you or recording in order to access later. But these data can also be used in the future by government to sometimes blackmail you. That has happened in the European Union. The Hungarian government has used secret recording that they've made of a journalist who was writing story and revealing information about programs that the government were doing that they wanted to keep secret. So the government went to the journalist saying that they had videos of him having sexual relationship with partners other than his wife and threatened him to reveal them if he was not stopping that. In the end, the journalist decided to reveal the information to his wife. They got divorced, but basically the government used all of this information to try to censor the activity of the journalist. This is used by government, but this is also used by other third party, and there is a growing trend in the EU and around the world of what we call sextortion online. This can happen whether you're having a chat on a webcam. There could be a third party person that is accessing your webcam without you knowing it and recording or taking picture of you in front of the webcam to then put it online. Or this can also happen when you're just in your bedroom with the webcam not being covered and there is picture taken of you. The little light next to the webcam is not on, so you cannot detect the fact that this is happening, but then pictures will appear online or on website and it will just have happened without your knowledge. This has very serious consequences on the lives of the people that are being abused through those systems. We have numbers from the UK that between 2015 and 2016, the number of reported cases of sextortion have doubled in the country. The data available indicates that 95% of the victims at the moment are male, from really young teenagers to older ones. But the National Crime Agency thinks that there is a large number of unreported, also from the female population. And it's difficult at the moment to have a clear indication on how much suicide are actually linked to this activity, because in the way they process, people are feeling really ashamed. It really impacts their personal life. It really impacts also their professional life. Some people lose their job over this. But because of that shame, a lot of the victims don't actually go to report it to any authority or any help support system because they don't want to add further people within that group. So a lot of work is being done by government around the world to try to raise the issue and try to create support groups for victims. Unfortunately, there is much more that needs to be done. There is stories from victims that have managed to recover from it and get back their life that are trying to help that, but this is not the case of everyone. And there is also a work that's being done to try to link further the suicide that are happening in relationship to this, and how people that pushed and blackmail people that led them to commit suicide, how could they be perhaps prosecuted or heard in those cases. Many of you might have heard a few years ago of a case in Canada of a teenage girl called Amanda Todd, who was tricked online in a chat with someone she was with someone who she was discussing for more than a year. Convinced her when she was 13 to take a picture of her breast, and the person then put the pictures online. She suffered bullying at school, had to move many times, but each time she was moving school, the persecution continued because the person found out which school she was going. He was contacting the schoolmate, circulating the pictures, which has led to a lot of abuse, a lot of depression on her side, and she committed suicide in 2015. The person that went behind that was found in the Netherlands and condemned to 11 years of jail, because in a lot of cases of sextortion, the most known one and the prosecuted one are often linked to teenager, because it's not only extortion, abuse of private life, but it's also linked to child exploitation and illegal content. But there is also a lot of adults that are being targeted by that. So it's there is a lot of research still needs to be done, because the victims don't fit a specific profile. It really could happen to anyone online. And the point of bringing this issue is not to scare anyone from teenager to older to not use chat online or to not use services online, but to be aware that you don't always know the intention of the person with who you're speaking, you don't always know what's happening, and we need to protect our devices to make sure that abuse are not here, and also create a better support system among the society to provide assistance to the victim when those cases happen. This is a big issue at the moment, mostly through webcam and smartphones. But if we put this problem in the context of the development of IoT and the fact that more and more products are having cameras, there is surveys and studies, and we heard yesterday in a presentation here that within 3 years we're expecting to have 50 billion connected devices with camera, with micro, recording us at all time. Then this problem of devices recording us and spying on us, sometime blackmailing, leading to blackmail, might be exponentially important. We already know from a recent case that the GCHQ have used Samsung Smart TV to spy on people by recording them and by also taking some video. We know of Alexa being used in some cases for recording. We know of Kyla, a little doll that is spying on the children, playing with them. We know of baby monitors that have been spying on people, etc., etc. So the large numbers of connected devices could put us in an age of the internet of ransomware, where all the devices could turn against you and link to you being further blackmailed. But Fanny will go into that in more detail.
Thank you. So as Estelle already spoke about it, there's a clear trend in the increase of the development and also the use of Internet of Things. Well, Internet of Things, parallel to this trend, has become this buzzword, but we don't often offer proper context or explanation. And that was a problem for Femme too, who has heard Internet of Things, but also heard the Internet of Everything and also the Internet of Shit. And that made her really confused what this concept is about and if it's good or not. So we wanted to talk a little bit about what that is. You can see these words, and I'm wondering if you have any idea what can be a common thing between street food and emoji, and also Internet of Things. And actually, the only thing that's common is that all of these words were added to the Oxford Dictionary as official English words in 2013. With a specific definition for Internet of Things, which reads as follows. A proposed development of the Internet in which everyday objects have network connectivity, allowing them to send and receive data. And that's one of the most important elements, going beyond what Estelle said about the cameras, which is of course an important part of it. The real core part of Internet of Things is actually a sensor that is able to gather and transfer data between machines, but also to the cloud, and enables these devices and mechanisms to offer real-time responses. The Internet of Everything includes things that we will focus on today, but also people, process, and data. And from the things perspective, they can vary from everyday objects, as Estelle already named a few. So from toothbrush, hairbrush, a toaster, that was a pretty famous example, or a fridge. That's one side of the range, but if you think about cars, pacemakers, insulin pumps, or thermostats, even in very serious government buildings, you can imagine that the risks are also vary for these. Well, we left Femme a while ago. Let's go back to Femme a little bit. What happened since then, since she found a partner? Actually, we talked about how connected she was, how many devices she had, and she was interested in sex toys as well. She found two things, and first, she found a slogan that made her very interested. The slogan was like this. Have you ever wondered how you stack up to other people around the world? Since Femme was a very active fitness tracker user, she got very, very intrigued. And searched a little bit more when she found the first smart condom on the market, which is called Icon. Icon costs 70 euro, which is pretty expensive for a condom because it is not exactly the condom that costs like this, but it's a ring that you can put on your penis after the condom. What's interesting about this is that it records several data. Just to name some of them: the calories burned during sexual intercourse, speed, total number and velocity of thrusts, frequency of sessions, total duration of sexual intercourse, the different positions you have sex in. This is only in beta testing, but they are telling us that they will get back to us with more information on the positions, and the average skin temperature. The company claims that all data are kept anonymous, but all users have also the opportunity to share the data on social media or with the world. So after him, he was also interested what's out there for her. And she found a specific product by Swecom. It's called a SIME-I. The SIME-I is a vibrator with a camera, what you can see on the bottom right corner on the edge of the vibrator. And Femme, as she's a very, very cautious consumer, so she read the review of this product. And this is what she found. What makes the SIME-I truly unique is the built-in camera. Surrounding the camera are 4 LED lights, making images clear and easy to see. It is available, the app is available for iOS, Mac, Android, and Windows. But the reviewer had some issues because it created lots of error messages and it was very difficult to install. But in the end, she was very happy to note that she was able to connect all of her devices and sync them, and also link that to her one of her cloud provider account and share the streamed recording with her partner and all of these apps. When she started thinking about this and did some extra research, she also found that according to this this specific product, lots of people experience problems with it and already started enforcing their different rights. One of them was highly reported by this Motherboard article, that the camera is very easy to hack, but in a very, very basic technical level. Probably there are people in this room who could hack it very easily. And that created lots of doubts in her. And I wanted to talk to you about a little bit of this hacking situation and what harms you can actually suffer from these vulnerabilities. There are lots of different interferences with human rights related to IoT. First is privacy interference and infringement that already a little bit we touched on, government surveillance, but also surveillance capitalism, when specific companies monetize your data. And Kayla is a really good example, which was very famous in Germany. I recommend you look it up. It's a very, very creepy doll. The other issue is data protection. Maryant also talked about the change in terms and services, also location data, and what these companies are using your data for instance, Fitbit. The third piece is the security failure, which can be a failure that is without malicious intent or with malicious intent. And the hacking part can lead to not smaller incidents than when the central heating system in Finland was taken down. And ultimately, there's another harm we should talk about, and that's not less than death. When we when we think of connected cars, and there are already reported accidents by Tesla. Here, I'd like to leave you with a note from Bruce Schneier, who was one of the leading security experts, who tells us not to concede, and in the development of Internet of Things is not definitive, it depends on us, and he says that we need to reverse the trend to connect everything to the internet. If we risk harm and even death, then we need to think twice about what we connect to the internet and what we leave uncomputerized. And at this point, I'd like to ask you what you think of the limits of innovation, and based on all these risks and harms and possible interferences, would you use these devices or not?
Is there someone who wants to go first? Otherwise, I can just say that it scares me.
Okay.
Have you talked to consumers of these devices yet? Have you spoken recently to someone who has used some of these?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
what did they say?
Not only we spoke about consumers, what our colleagues in the US did is they filed a complaint with the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, which is their competition but also consumer protection agency, and they filed a complaint based on the technical insecurities and vulnerabilities, and what the impact was pretty high because the company acknowledged all the issues, and they are thinking of withdrawing the product from the market until the proper security, digital security standards are developed in the product.
But we're talking about one product only, so there might be more filed complaints against other sticks and webcams and things you use with your body.
Yeah, but even with dating apps, for example, what organizations like us do, especially in Brussels, is to talk to the legislators to make sure that we put the rules that need to be put in place to prevent abuses from happening and to make sure that the users remain in control. But what other organizations, like for example the Norwegian Consumer Council, did is that they lodged a complaint against Tinder, and they did it to the ombudsman in Norway. And thanks to that, actually, Tinder changed its terms of service worldwide. Specifically, they introduced a lot of changes for Europeans. For example, something that you think might be very basic. If you were a concerned Norwegian consumer or user, you could not read the terms of service in Norwegian. You had to read them in other languages, but not Norwegian. Or, for example, Tinder was available for users below 18. And now they're not able to use it. Or before, the license that you grant to Tinder, it was quite wide. Now it's rather limited. Before, they remained the right to keep everything and to share a lot of data by default, and now they are not able to do it. So there are a lot of changes that we can make, and also as a user, you can also do it. I don't know if you knew, but if you're using any of these apps, actually there's always an email address and a post address where you can lodge complaints. You can ask about the type of data they have on you, and also what you can ask what they do with it. And this is possible, so we all encourage you to do that.
Hello, thanks for the talk, first of all. It was very interesting. I just wondered, it's really scary for everyone of us, I guess. Is there any possibilities that people can use already that are more safe? If you have a long-term relationship, for example, you are very dependent on digital devices, and also if you want to get in contact with other people, is there already a movement of people working on that? Is there already programs, apps, something that I can use that is more safe?
So I think on that, I talked about how the government or third party can abuse the programs we're using. This is possible also because there is a cooperation with the company, and because most of the company are doing are building their product in a way that it's made to be data harvesting, and it's not made in a way that it's respecting your privacy. And this will have to change, at least for everyone living in the European Union. And this will be also further implemented, hopefully, through laws that are being developed now, specifically for the IoT sector. But for instance, there is this concept of privacy by design and by default, that the product should be built in a way that it only requires a collection of data that is necessary for the feature you wanted. It doesn't request extra measure, that it builds in system for making sure that when you're communicating, this is secure. So encryption is one of the tools, of course, for this. Other ways to protect anonymity are possible. And frankly, at the moment, most of the products on the market are not abiding by those standards. There is some niche markets that are being more privacy friendly, but this is not the case of most of the applications. So there is a change that needs to happen in the market in that sense. If people that build products or offer services want people to trust them, because what will happen is we will see more and more abuses and more people either being scared or just not wanting to participate into this if we don't go into a way where there is more privacy-friendly options. We've seen that trend starting to move a lot on messaging after the Snowden revelation. The use of application like Signal instead of WhatsApp have increased a lot, even though now WhatsApp offer a type of encryption, but not as robust as the one for Signal. So it's not impossible to imagine that in the future, just Skype will develop the same way, or there would be possibility for Mumble, which is a system like Skype but doesn't offer video because it's not secure yet on this, that will also be more secure, so people would be able to communicate in any way they want through the internet with their partners, with anyone they want, without having a third party, whether government or private, interfering in those types of things. So there is a need for the government, of course, to stop spying on us, but there is also a need for the industry to step up and protect our privacy in a more stronger basis.
Thank you. Any more questions? Yep.
Hi, I'm Natalia. I'm working for Wire. It's an end-to-end encrypted messenger. We also have a booth here, just in case you want to hear more about us. Approach me. I'm here for a few more minutes, or stop by. It's called Wire, and it's definitely also more secure than Signal that you just mentioned. Thank you.
That was the plug. Are there questions?
If there is not, we can show you a little video on a new IoT that is entering the market.
That will trigger questions.
That will probably trigger a question. It's a pretty cool smart dress. It's a smart mattress, and I won't say more.
Just before the video, how many of you would find useful to have a connected mattress? Can you please raise your hands? Useful. I'm not saying that it's privacy or friendly or secure. Okay.
What for?
I don't know. Why would you use it for?
Primarily, what they offer it for is the quality of your sleep. Like, they adjust even your posture, and they personalize according to your movement and things like that. But as we can see it in the video, hopefully, there are some additional advantages according to some manufacturers. But I wanted to go back a little bit to what we can do and what are the secure apps or toys or anything. I think it's very important to note that first you have to make that decision that you need that specific feature to be connected to the internet or not, and if not, then don't choose that product. But if yes, then you should not be exposed to these risks and harms because of your decision. So the answer is not definitely that you shouldn't use. The answer is that the manufacturers have an obligation to strengthen their both legal and technological safeguards for users.
as the video is not working, I would just like ask another question. What you're actually saying is that either I can use the intelligent technology of like tracking my sleep with an intelligent mattress connected to the internet and pay with my data and lose my data to companies who sell it, or I could not use it at all. Is that correct?
Well, that's the situation right now, but it doesn't have to be that way. And it's the same with social media, and it's the same with free press online. We're being told that in order to get it, we need to be tracked by advertiser, because if not, it doesn't work. We're also being told that if you want to have free social media, you need to be tracked and your data being sold to other. If not, it doesn't work. These business model have been created, but the business model of privacy has not been explored, so we're just being sold that this is the only way to do it, when we have not explored a business model based on privacy and security. The problem with the first one, though, is that people will start realizing that you have pictures of your baby being used in advertisement, even though you didn't realize that you agreed to that. You have your data stolen by people, and fake profile being created, and abuse that leads to that make you lose trust in this product and more. So if the industry does not react to this, they will just get to a point where people don't trust those services. But most importantly, privacy and data protection are our fundamental right, and if they want to offer us product, they need to make sure they comply with this. It's not only just a good business decision, it's a duty to do this. But we're not going there, because there is no enforcement of those rules at the moment.
Are there any more questions? So, I don't know if we should wait for the video. You could tell us what it is. Okay, so describe the video.
Suspense is over.
So this mattress that is marketed in Spain is a smart mattress that sends you notification when somebody uses the mattress while you're not there in a suspicious way. It sends you notifications, and then you can ask questions when you go home. And it raises, of course, lots of questions, but I think one of them is really how we want to build our society, and the lack of trust in people, in devices, in data, in all those issues. But I wish you could see it, because it's very dramatic. It's very dramatic with a great music. And it says that they are marketing in Spain because they carried out a survey that Spanish people, according to this company, are the most unfaithful in Europe. And there's no evidence that shows that why this company is doing this. Yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't work.
Yeah, so, well, just to reiterate, that is not true. I'm from Spain, and we are not that unfaithful. At least not all of us. Actually, I think it's good to end off on what can you do, really, after hearing all these scary things. As we said in the beginning, this session was for you to be aware of everything that is out there, that you or your friends or people that you know are using or may use in the future, and what can you do about it, right? So if you think about the dating apps, obviously the option that is quite obvious is like, okay, I won't use them, right? If you don't want to choose that option, then you can choose the app that fits your needs. Well, we heard before about Wire, but there are many others. There's also not only even apps, but even search engines like Quant or DuckDuckGo or StartPage. There are different companies that are actually standing up for your rights, at least more than other companies, definitely other more mainstream companies. So as a user, you can support them. They ask for donations, they ask for users. Also, what you can do is, as I said before, if you don't like what I just told you about Tinder or about Grindr or about any other app that you may use, write to them. send them a little email. Actually encourage your friends that, hey, I just been to a talk and I've heard about this. I don't like it. I want to find somebody, but that doesn't mean that I want Tinder to find me in this other sense. I don't want my data to have a relationship. It's me that wants to have the relationship, right? And so you can also support NGOs like us and also other type of NGOs like the Norwegian Consumer Council, as we explained before, that focus more on consumer issues. And then what is very important is that knowing about it is not enough. We are obviously human beings. We all have our stories, our experiences. Luckily, or we don't all experience a sexual extortion. But we experience other things, so you have to be in control of your life. I don't think that you would be comfortable with having a person observing what you do in your house all the time. There's actually a lot of campaigns that you can find online where people follow some customers and they're like, what are you doing? Well, that's what happened online. So if it's uncomfortable in the offline world, then let's make sure that governments and also companies know that we are not okay with it. And so spread the word. That's the message I want to leave you with it.
Thank you.